About it. Let's talk about it. Don't you wanna talk about it? Let's talk about
Inspirations
it.
Live.
Don't you wanna talk
And
about
now,
it? Let's talk
Miss Jace
about it.
Bryant.
Don't you wanna talk about it?
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for spending some of your Sunday with us. My name is Mrs. J. Spire, and I am the host of J Inspirations Live. And tonight, I am so excited to have two of the co authors of Grief Through His Eyes in the studio with us tonight. We are very excited about our series, Men Talk 2. Here at J Inspirations Live, we believe that it is important to hear the voices of our men and to give them a platform to be able to speak freely and to share their hearts. So tonight, we would like to welcome to the studio Vincent Bryant and Prentice Leonard. Hey, you guys.
What's going on?
Good evening. How you doing?
Good. I'm so excited to have you guys on tonight.
I appreciate you inviting us on this wonderful platform.
Listen, there is so much for us to dive into tonight, so much of us to talk about. So I'm going to take some time to introduce you guys and talk about your book. So the book that you guys are co-author, it is Grief Through His Eyes. So I know it's an opportunity for several men to be able to share their hearts and to tell their stories. So before we get started and talk about that, I also want to give a shout out to Mrs. Deborah Juniper Fry. I know she is the visionary and she is the mastermind behind this book. And I know this is volume 2. So, Miss Deborah, if you are watching, if you are listening, we want to shout you out and tell you thank you so much for being obedient and giving the men the opportunity to have a safe place to share their story and to share their heart. So, you guys, who do we have with us tonight in the studio? So, we have two special young men who I was given the opportunity to meet in two different ways. So, Prentice is actually my brother in Christ, and we go to church together at the Way. When I first met Prentice, he would kind of like sit in the back. He was so quiet. He didn't say much. And then as we've gotten the opportunity to talk to each other and to learn about each other a little more and his family. And then Vincent, whom I didn't know, I think maybe up until maybe the last 5 years. So I found out that, he knows my husband. They kind of grew up together. And so I'm definitely excited to have both of you guys on tonight. So, who is Vincent? Just in a very small, just a snapshot. So, Vincent was born and raised in Norfolk, Virginia. He is a graduate of Norfolk Public Schools, Old Dominion University, and Liberty University. Vincent's careers and passion includes being a teacher, a coach, a mentor, a motivational speaker, and he is currently a school administrator. The title of his chapter in the book is Hope. Hold on, pain ends. And then we have Prentice. He was born in Charleston, South Carolina. He is a 12-year Navy serviceman, and he is the owner of Lucky Seasons Landscaping. He is a volunteer head basketball coach for boys and girls ages 8 to 10. And the title of his chapter in the book is Pouring on Empty. So, again, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
I also want to let everyone that's watching, please, you guys, this is a conversation where we want to make sure that you guys are included. So I want you to ask a question, send some encouraging words, whatever you need to do, but just make sure that you are letting the guys know that you are here and that you are supporting. So one of the first questions I wanted to ask, history has kind of shown, and sometimes with the, men and women type thing, women sometimes talk a lot more, right? And sometimes men just kind of sit back in the shadows, want to be strong, want to make sure that you're supporting everyone, want to be the breadwinners, want to be the one that's holding everybody down. So tell me, what made you guys decide to open up and share your story?
Well, for me, it was my coping mechanism, right? Everything that I went through the course of 2.5, 3 years, it was my coping mechanism. You know, I had to be really, really strategic into who I spoke with, how I spoke, and what was said due to some issues that I was dealing with as I was going through my situation. So um, I had no means of expressing my emotions without putting it on paper. I went to put it on paper, and as I got to writing, it just poured out. It poured out, and it was easy for me to write it. It wasn't a hard. The experiences was difficult, but to write it and tell my story, it was very, very easy for me to do. But it was nothing more than a coping mechanism for me. Working in the mental health field, I understand the importance of recognizing trauma, recognizing the grief, and how to deal with grief. And writing was my coping mechanism. So that's why I was able to write my story, tell my story, and put it on paper because it was something I needed to do to get through what I was going through.
And what about you, Prentice? You're on mute.
So writing my chapter was one of the first it was my first time being able to tell my story on with what I went through. Um, like you said, a lot of times, man, we hold a lot of things in. So this was my first time able to actually put exactly how I was feeling, no filter, um, no limitations, and putting it on paper to get it out. And then later on, like I said, and it was just, it was therapeutic to me. It was good to just get it out finally. Um, I've always been writing. That's always been one of my tools. But at a certain point in time in my life, I stopped writing. So, and I noticed that with doing that, I noticed later on that writing was a vent for me. And whether if it was for me, it's always been writing or music or even basketball or things like that. It's been like therapy to me. So when I had a chance to get invited on, this project and write write my story down, it really helped me out a whole lot. It was like, weight lifted off. So because it was a lot, and a lot of time, man, we try to work through things or we like to hold things in. Um, and I've been one of those people. Or another thing is a lot of time us as men we hold our tongue for other people's peace, and that was another thing for me because it's kind of like, yeah, I'm hurting, yeah, I'm in pain, yeah, I'm in a sense bleeding, but and I don't mean to bleed on nobody else, but
Mhm.
I just been bleeding, so I'm just looking for the proper healing and everything. So and this route was a real good proper manner for me to tell my story. So
And I love that because, as you guys were talking, and even when I think about, my own story, sometimes we're worried about what other people will think, right? How other people will feel about us when we tell them what we've gone through, and we go through like that. What are people going to think? If are they going to judge me, right? And so as I think about some of your stories, and we're going to dive into it because, Vincent, he went through a divorce. And then he went through having to be incarcerated for a little while, and then his career, right? His career being in jeopardy, his family being in jeopardy, his livelihood being in jeopardy, and then what people would think about him in the community because he does so much. And then for Prentice, you know, there was a death of a loved one and then loss of children. And so those things sometimes can really wear and tear, right, on us mentally and physically and emotionally. So I really I honor you guys, and I'm thankful that you're able to share your story. And you were thinking, and that's the thing, once you get it in writing, you don't know how many people it will touch. And so then it becomes being more about you and being about everybody else. Because I know reading your story and your journey, there was some things that were some of the things that could be the same, right? And so you just never know what other people are going through. So it's one thing, Prentice, that you said holding my tongue for other people's peace. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that and what that really means to you.
So me, I've always been a people pleaser growing up. I've always been but in a simpler way. I love people. I love to help people. I love to give back. I don't do a lot of drama, or I'm not big on arguing. I'm competitive, especially when it comes to basketball. But when it comes down to the arguing and yelling, my mom and dad, they never did it around me, even coming up. So that's been a thing that I can be around it, but I don't, I can only take so much. So me over the time, I have been in relationships to where that other person is a little more aggressive than I am, or they may be a little bit more of, a lot of people, they listen in order to respond right away. And, they ready just to they hear what you're saying, but they ready to get their point across. And I got a lot of that. So, in reality, down the line, I was like, man, I've always been a person of peace, cherishing my peace early on, and just loving to be around the right people or the right things or the right places. So, and I felt like at one point in time, I was being apologetic for who I am.
Mm.
So when it came down to me as a man finally expressing myself, then I felt like that me expressing myself was being used against me, which later on wanted me to make me hold my tongue when I did want to express myself. But I started to think about or assume the actions that may come behind, or consequences may come behind it, that may disrupt my peace, which made me want to hold my tongue. To where I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna let it blow over. It is what it is. You know how they say, you got it. It's whatever. And that's not always healthy. But it's a pro and a con. But like I said, that was just me. So I would just let it go, and I would most of the time hold my tongue, even in relationship. And long story short, later on, it wasn't healthy. It wasn't good. Because even though a lot of times as men we hold our tongue, we don't express ourselves, or we may have that fear of, we express ourselves and it get used back on us. It's still like, hey, I want to express myself, but I want to be able to express myself in a healthy environment too. So,
and that's good, because as a woman, and you saying that, I know I have been guilty of that, right? Like when someone expresses their heart, right? The person you're in a relationship with, and then you use it later, and it's not healthy for either party. And so, Vincent, when we were preparing for the show, it's something that you said. You were talking about controlling your emotions and talking about how that 1 second of whatever it is, how it could impact. And that goes back to what Prentice said, was saying too, wanting to hold your peace. But you also said that something was when things are brewing, right? And you don't let it out. Talk about that a little bit.
So, yeah. Well, as a man, a lot of times we are deemed, when we show emotion, whether it be, happy, sad, crying, outbursts, whatever it is sometimes and often is deemed weak in society, right? So I also notice a lot of men, African American men in particular, are sitting behind bars because they couldn't control their emotions. They had no outlet to express themselves, and then they didn't know how to effectively express themselves. And I was guilty of that. and it cost me, in essence, a part of my stability, right? So what I mean by just controlling your emotions, it's okay to communicate, it's okay to talk, it's okay to express yourself in a manner that's productive, right? But if you don't have any means of knowing how to do that, it can also find yourself in a situation that's not ideal situation for you. So for me, off of experience, that one spring morning almost cost me my entire life and career and everything that I worked out and worked for. And it was because of the situation was brewing. I knew it was brewing. I had evidence of infidelity. And instead of just talking to my support system, and I had a major support system from my father to my uncle to my friends and family, right? I come from a big family. I could have turned to a ton of people. However, you don't want everyone to know what's going on in your household, right? So I didn't use the resources I had. And when things hit the fan, I didn't respond in the manner of which I should have. So by doing that, it impacted my children. It landed me in jail for 5 days. It cost me my livelihood for 18 months. For 18 months, I was on administrative leave without pay. The young folks that I mentor, educate, teach, and coach, who I influenced every single day, was impacted. I was having to answer questions to, hey, Coach Bryant, Mr. Bryant, why aren't you at work? Why aren't you coaching the basketball team? I had just took my girls basketball team at Booker T. Washington High School to the state semifinals game in the state tournament, a thing that has never been done at Booker T. Washington High School. I had just done that 8 months prior. And then to have my entire team returning where we can win the state championship and for me not to coach them. And I had 4 girls that was being looked at in terms of athletic scholarships, and they didn't receive any. And it was all because I couldn't control my emotions, and it impacted everything I had my imprints on, everything I had my fingerprints on. That was impacted by that. So I say that because we have to learn how to express ourselves, but in a productive manner that it don't cost us our livelihood and possibly our freedom.
And freedom. Yeah. And we were laughing about this right before we started the show, because I said, guys, are you ready? And Prentice said something like, are we gonna, because I'm the only lady on here, he's like, we're gonna attack ladies, and we were laughing about it. But then we really had a really good conversation about the fact that has been the issue in relationships, not just intimate relationships, but just relationships in general across the board, that we don't speak our truth, right? We're trying to be someone else for everybody else, and so we don't speak our truth. And we have to know that even though people may not agree with it, they may not understand it, that a person's truth is their truth. And so whatever we just have to be who we are in every situation that we're in, because people are looking to us. And lots of times we'll hear people like, you're a coach. We'll say, well, it's not the coach's responsibility to be a mentor. Prentice is a coach. It's not the person's responsibility to be a mentor. But we have to know that regardless of whether we want to be or not, when people see us and we're doing good things, and they can come to us, that we become things to them that maybe we're not ready to be, or we don't see ourselves, but it is what it is. And it's that person's truth, that Vincent is someone that I look up to, that Prentice is someone that I look up to. So I'm sure that when all those things happened, even though it was things you couldn't control, right? You could have controlled your emotions, but we're human and we get in our feelings, but then we're not sure how to, how to respond because people are looking up to us. But again, I'm thankful that you guys are telling your story because Brian says exposure brings disclosure, right? And so even the things that we are exposed to and the things we go through, now the people who look up to you, they're going to know how to deal with it in a different way because you guys are sharing. Um, it's so many things. And Deborah did jump on here. So Deborah, we gave you a shout out. We are so thankful that you were obedient, and that you answered the call for Grief Through His Eyes, Volume 1 and Volume 2, to give the men the opportunity to have a safe place to be able to share their hearts and to be able to share their stories. And you guys are going to see me kind of flipping back and forth because I actually couldn't get, even reading the chapters over and over again, I actually couldn't get everything, onto paper to really just think about what we wanted to talk about. But one of the things I wanted to talk about with you, Prentice, because I do think is important. I heard you say earlier, being that you wanted to protect everybody and, we have to be strong. It's all these words that we use when we describe men or women. And one of the things that we describe when we're talking to men is strong, right? Those expectations that we put on you guys, that society put on you guys. And the name of your chapter is Pouring on Empty. So this is where I want to get a little bit into, because everybody hasn't read the book. If you guys have not read the book, you should get the book and you should read the book. But Prentice said Pouring on Empty, and one of the things that you and your wife have experienced is a loss of a child, right? And so you're trying to support each other and you're trying to do all you can, and you just keep pouring and pouring and pouring. Tell us about the name of the chapter and then share a little bit about your experience and why, what this means and what you were going through in order to be able to share your heart through this book.
So, of course, I was, my dad, so Coach Deborah, she, and when the situation happened back in 2021, which is not long ago, my dad got invited on, and he did volume 1. And then I came on and got invited to volume 2. But just being around the authors around volume 1, being around, it's so, us as men, we feel like, sometimes we can feel like, even though we know, we can feel like that we're going through it by ourselves until we get around other men. And that really opens up the surface and opens up the plate to things. So a little bit about my chapter. 2021, I lost my mom, and I almost lost my mom and my father at the same time to COVID pneumonia. And that was doing what they always do for anybody else, is give, serve, protect, comfort. And they took a trip down and came back, and they had it. And my dad ended up pulling through. My mom didn't. Laid her to rest. 3 days later, we had a stillborn, a baby girl, my baby girl, Brielle, which was actually our second miscarriage, because earlier that year we had a first miscarriage. So losing my mom, had a miscarriage, and then my family, we all are not here. A lot of my family, like uncles and aunts and all of them, are down south or up north. So my wife's family is here. So I didn't really have a lot of immediate family that I could really be around. But just going through, just kind of put you in my shoes a little bit. I just lost my mom, and then losing another child, in the sense of having a miscarriage. And it bringing, that was kind of trauma too, because before, with my mom and dad, my mom had 4 miscarriages. So I already hated the fact of losing a baby. So with that, my mom passed. 3 days later, we had a stillborn on the weekend of our gender reveal. So it was kind of like, hey, inviting people out, then had to take the invite out and be like, hey, got to cancel it. And then being in the hospital of the same hospital that my mom passed away in, now we losing our baby girl, waiting for her heartbeat to stop, and so the baby can take the baby, the doctor can take the baby out, and then we're we're walking away of the labor and delivery floor with funeral arrangements while everybody else is walking away with their baby. And just those pictures and images, whether it was mentally or verbally, like, that you're looking at and really going through. And even going through all that, I'm sitting in the hospital. I just lost my mom. And I literally, um, like it says, pouring on empty. I was really, at the time, I tried to be in places that, and it's funny how God will show you, but I was trying to be in places that it was only meant for God to be and not me.
That was good, Prentice.
When it comes down to it, you're going to go through things. You're going to go through things that God is going to show you that you are not strong enough to go through by yourself. We're not even meant to be that strong, which is why we have him as a heavenly father, or as a father, period, for us to really lean on. So, and really going through all that, losing my mom, like me, this is my mom. This ain't just somebody with a, this is my mom. My mom and dad was married for 38 years, known each other for 41. So it's like this life that they build together, and like that's, my mother, she's gone to a better place. But as a human, as a man, I'm hurting. I'm hurting. One of the strongest people that I know that knows me the best between my mom, and my dad is going to a better place, but is not here now. But even though I'm feeling all these emotions, I had to put that to the side because I also had a grieving wife. So I had to be there. I had to be that strong rock for my wife. I had to put how I felt to the side, or what I was kind of going through to the side. I had phone calls from my older sister that's here, and be an aid to my sister at times where she was at work. So now I'm grieving as a younger brother to my grieving sister. Then I had to grieve as an uncle, because even though my niece and my nephew were young, they still know what was going on. So I had to grieve to them as a, and be there as an uncle for them whenever it was time. And even people that knew my mom and dad, they touched so many people lives around, and you just get those phone calls of people like, hey, man, she's a good woman, and your mom and dad is this, that, and third. And it's like, man, and it's like you getting all those things, but then at a certain stance, like my dad said, you got to set an assessment on yourself. So it's like some days you take in that stuff, and then some days you got to kind of cut it off, because like, okay, now I didn't been enough of a dumpster. Now I need to relieve some of this stuff. So at the end of the day, it was hard. I didn't know if I was going to be able to bear it. I want to say, two strong guys by my side. One of the guys lost his mom and his foster mom. I've never lost a parent before. So, with him being there and really taking me under his wing, my dad still taking me under his wing, even, how crazy it is. I believe in a sense that, it's hard for two broken people to fix each other. And even though we felt like scattered pieces, our family was really tying together to really bring each other together, as well as definitely the church and people like Coach Deborah and at the Wade Church and New Life Church and the pastor, and just the family outside of the family, that was really that glue. So, and that was my pouring on empty, because a lot of times in my life I've always been pouring into others, even when I didn't have enough of myself. And I think with me going through this chapter in this season of my life, it really put a hit on me to where I'm like, okay, like everybody else is good. What about you?
What about you?
Like everybody else is at their best. When is you gonna get your rest? So it's like, hey, so what? What? It's all good for everybody else to be good, but we don't want the broke down Prince. We want the, because you only get one you. So
only one you. And that's right, because we have to know what our capacity, we have to know what's the capacity. When are we already so full that there's nothing else for us to take in, right? So pouring on empty. So I just want to say thank you so much for not only sharing your story in the book, but being able to be vulnerable and being transparent in a space like this, to be able to share that. And we have people in the comments that saying, wow, thank you so much just for sharing, because we are all going through some of the same things and we think we have to do it by ourselves, and we don't. And Vincent, like for you, some of grief through your eyes, some of the grief that you have experienced. It hasn't been, a death, but a loss is a loss, your job, your marriage, things like that. That's still things that we grieve. And in your book, in the book, you said that it was in the midst of that trauma that I found my purpose in life. Every individual on earth has a why. We do certain things like working 2 or 3 jobs, and why do we stay in toxic relationships? But most of us know our why, but very few people know our purpose. And you said for 38 years I did not know my purpose, but I understood my why. Why I did what I did was solely for my family, my kids, and my wife. And it took for my family to be shattered into pieces and my freedom to be at stake for me to understand my purpose. When I read that, that was a powerful statement to me. So, talk with us about purpose versus why. Like, you guys don't understand. This is an hour show, but I could talk to the both of you all for hours because it's just that deep and it's just that helpful. It's so powerful. Both of the chapters, they were both just so powerful. 2 different stories, but 2 men grieving for 2 different things and coming out and not being strong. I don't like that word strong anymore, but being able to be resilient.
Yes, yeah. So for me, kind of Prentice doesn't even realize it, man. He and I have so much in common. He he's always well, grief brought us to this place, but he's now a brother of mine. I don't share this often, but I lost my mother, on my 25th birthday. So I never, it was difficult for me to celebrate birthdays. I haven't really celebrated much of my birthdays because it's a constant reminder that this is the day my mother left me, right? So in the midst of that, I was going through grief then. And there's no timetable for dealing with trauma and grief, right? But my why, being the oldest of 5 children, I have always had to, I like to say I operate off of 3 Ps. I'm a pleaser, protector, and a provider, right? And I had to do that my entire life. I've done that as a child growing up. My life wasn't difficult as a child. However, I was always that leader, always the backbone of the family. And believe it or not, it encouraged me to do the things that I was able to do. So my why was always to ensure that my children had the things that I didn't have. And that was a family, a household of 2 parents. Yes, my mother was, my mother and father were co-parenting. They were really good at co-parenting, but I didn't have both parents in the house. So I always wanted to give that to my children by any means necessary. And I sacrificed so much of myself um, and my happiness to ensure that my children received that. And it was to that point in my life on in May 24th of 2021 that I no longer had control over what my dynamics of my family was going to be. It was out of my control. And those who know me, they know, being a leader, being a high school quarterback, playing college football, I've always been a leader. I've always been able to control the things that I can control. And at this particular time, I had no control. So that was my why. Why did I do what I do for my family, for my wife, for my children, right? But I never really understood my purpose on this earth, right? It was that day, those 5 days I sat in Chesapeake City Jail, that I understood my purpose. Here I am, educator, 2 degrees, administrator, assistant principal. sitting in jail, right? And I'm sitting here with young individuals. There was a young man that was in the cell with me, was 18 years old, right? And of course, we hear all the time, a lot of times inmates say, well, I didn't do anything. It wasn't me, right? But the evidence is stacked up against, but it's me. I'm sitting here like, I don't belong in here. But it took for a young correctional officer to treat me as if I was a serial killer, that I realized that there are so many individuals that's sitting in jails and in prison that don't belong in here. And if they don't have the finances, they don't have the resources for proper representation, they can spend the rest of their lives in here, right? Then there's also, so for me, I took that piece and I started looking and I asked the correctional officer for pen and paper. And I sat in there for 5 days and I just got to writing. And I started writing not just my chapter, Hope, Hold On, Pain Ends. I started writing an autobiography. Hope is just a snippet of what I really have to say, right? And I just started writing my autobiography and I talked about, false imprisonment. So I think my purpose here on earth is greater than being a school administrator. All right. So I am working on right now, I'm in school working on my doctoral degree in public administration. I always had a desire for law school, but being a college athlete, I had to play football to pay for school. And I just didn't have enough time to really focus on law school. So now here I am, 40 years old, and I'm working on my doctorate in public administration. And I want to be city manager, some type of local government official who can really tap into the courts and the judicial system, because there are a ton of innocent individuals sitting in prison serving life sentences, 20, 30 years for crimes that they did not commit. And when I sat in there for 5 days, I realized that I got a bigger purpose, and my purpose is to help those who may be sitting in here who do not belong in here. So that's when like I said, I got to writing, and it was easy to me. I just poured out. As Prentice stated, I always been a writer. At a very young age, I used to write poems. I always been a writer. I love writing. So I got an entire autobiography done in 5 days.
And I love that because, sitting here and like just listening to you guys, Capri Moore is watching and she said to see men as open as you both are is a beautiful thing. May God continue to use your lives as a testimony of his love, grace, mercy, and his power. And I know, like, growing up, for me, like, the men in our lives didn't share. Right. And that's how, and the women didn't either. We always talk that, women talk a lot and, we tell everything, but there's always something that you don't want someone to know about you. Right. Again, you go back to that judgment type part. So people didn't really share their stories. And because of you guys sharing your story, there's going to be another generation of men that's going to know that it's okay to share their heart, that it's okay to support their wives, that it's okay that, when there is a miscarriage or there's a loss of life, it's not just the woman that's going through it, but that you're in a relationship with that person and that you have to be supportive. And you talked about, sharing your story and talking to other people about it. I love that you said, hey, Prentice, you didn't, you may not know this, but you're my brother and I lost my mom too. Just letting that other person know that I've been there and I'm here to support you. And that it's okay that men don't just have to have the relationship where you're watching a football game or you're going to a bar and that you're hanging out, but it's okay to have those real relationships. And I'm thankful that you guys have you have that support system that you have, because I know you guys have a really good support system. And you guys, if you're tuning in, you're watching the Jayspiration live show, and we're talking to Vincent Bryant and we're talking to Prentice Leonard, and they are two co-authors of Grief Through His Eyes, and they are here on the platform today, just being vulnerable and sharing their story with the goal that someone else will know that they don't have to do life alone, and that men talk too, and that grieving is a process that everyone is entitled to. It's not just children, it's not just women, it's not just about death, but that when we lose something or someone that's important to us, that we have the right to go through that grieving process, and that it may take could take 5 days, could take 5 years, and that's okay, that we have the opportunity to be able to really just do that. And when I started to read the book, I honestly didn't know how much I had in common with what you guys. I didn't expect to read what I read. And so honestly, I think I just sobbed, right? As I was reading the book, number one, because the same time that Prentice lost his mom, I lost my husband. And even though we were in the same church, everybody had so many things going on. And it's not that, maybe, you missed it somehow, because everybody was going through that grieving process. Um, and then, with Vincent, like, your life changed like suddenly, right? Over something that you couldn't control. And that's the way that I felt, when I lost my husband. So it was like so many things. And so there was actually days where I was like, I'm gonna cancel this men talk too, because it's too emotional and I can't talk to them. But then I really thought about the importance of what we're doing, right? And the importance of knowing that purpose and knowing what our why and our purpose is. Sometimes it's not just about us, it's about something and someone bigger than us, right? So that the next generation or the next person can know that that we went through it, that we just didn't sit in it, but that we were resilient, and that God was strong in our lives, and that we were able to go through it. And so now we're on the other side of it. um Prentice, you said um that because your wife was grieving, right, and you was being everything to everybody. But what I like that you said is that once your wife got to a point of healing, right, and you could see that healing as well, of course that made you feel better, but then she started to pour back into you. um Talk about that, because that's important, because there's oftentimes when there's loss like that, it could shatter relationships. But I loved when you said no, when she got to the part where she was really starting to heal, she wanted to pour back.
And and first word that come to my mind is balance. Because definitely going through, like you said, going through some things like that in certain relationships is like is a breaker. Some people walk away from it. Some people blame each other for, they point fingers or blame the circumstances and everything, instead of properly digesting it. So, but and she knew I was pouring a lot into her and everything. And I've always, even when we met each other, I've always wanted to be that a giver to her, a fresh beginning. We all have like childhood trauma in some type of sense and ways that that we uh that we try to make regular when it's really something that we need to work through. And I wanted both of each other to be each other's breath of fresh air. And most of all, I definitely wanted both of us to be the best of each other for each other. So as a man, sometimes we fail to realize, like you said, going back to with that, I was trying to be strong, and like you said, it's not about being strong, because real strength is not real strength is not saying nothing and going through it alone, but real strength is realizing that you need help and that you actually going to go act on it. And that was one of the things that I did. Even reaching out to my pastor, not even as a pastor, but he talked to me as a man, as a friend.
Wait a minute, hold on. Don't be claiming him all. Don't be claiming them all to yourself. Talk about some your pastor. That's our pastor and first lady.
My pastor first. That's me. So, and even firsthand with being around them, man, it's man, their hearts is genuine, and and even at my dad's church, and like I said, just being around the right people, so that helped me to heal, um, and just going through, like I said, when my wife, she went to a dark place because some women, they can have miscarriages or whatever the case may be, and they could just get up and go, and it's like, okay, cool. But me and my wife, what's so significant about us is not only how we met, but our love and how much we are family oriented. So that alone, when we lost our heartbeat, it was like losing a heartbeat that was supposed to be of our family. We're the youngest of both of our sides of the family, so we're building something of our own, and losing that, it hurt. But one thing a guy told me at my job, he said, just because you lose your love doesn't mean you stop doing what you love. And I didn't want to. I wanted to make sure that even though I was hurting, um, I didn't want. I don't know why this was in my heart, but don't let your. I often say we wear a lot of hats. People wear a lot of hats, especially women, because as men we can be like, hey, oh baby, I know what you're going through. But as a man, especially for a pregnant woman or as a woman in general, as men, we don't know what a woman is really going through. And even though we want to be that strong hero for them, like we really don't know. And one thing that was laid on my heart, even while we listening to Vincent, was don't let your hats get in the way of your healing. Because we at times through life we wear so many hats. So at the end of the day, we can be so focused on all those things and trying to stay busy. You got people that go through grief and they try to stay busy through it and stuff like that. And instead of just properly digesting it and healing. So one thing that I did to kind of finish up my answer is, I hopped into counseling and stuff right away. And with that, I hopped into counseling because I feel like when it comes to counseling or therapy, there's a time and a season for it. And I hopped into it because it sounded right, and not because I was ready for it. And it was a lot to digest. So, and like Vincent said,
You dropping jewels. Y'all dropping jewels. I'm sorry. I just had to say.
and like Vincent said, like you can't put no time on this stuff, man, because it's on you. It's on you because you're going through all those emotions, and it may not be all bad. And in the long run, if you don't know, I have a 7-month-old daughter now. I never thought I'd be looking at this little gorgeous face and everything, but um, that's a healing process for me. So seeing my wife smile at our daughter, seeing her smile, and just me being able to smile at them is definitely a beautiful picture that I've been waiting for, of something that's a part of both of us. Because at the end of the day, like I said, it's hard for two broken people to face each other. But I've noticed and I learned from my wife, even when she was going through it was like a dark place, week of depression and everything, a time of depression, where I've learned that the quietest people are usually the ones that's hurting the most, especially when they don't say nothing. And you got people that are willing to hurt other people because they want those people to see the hurt that they're going through, or they can become others' hurt. And I've learned that at in my relationships and friendships, and even at workplaces too. So, and that, like I said, it goes back to what I said with me and her, is just the balance. So
The balance.
when she healed better and when she became full, then she poured back in me where I didn't have to be so empty.
So empty. And so I see Vincent keep looking over to the other side. And so that brings me to a couple of the questions that I have for him, because I'm assuming that you're talking to your babies who are big babies. because parenting doesn't stop even when you're doing a podcast. But Vincent, when you went to court, after all that you went through, and stories changed, and you were able to walk out of there a free man, right? And then I read that you went directly to that place of employment. A little bit of feedback that you went directly to that place of employment and you signed. Are they trying to make something in the blender? That you went directly back to your place of employment and you signed your contract, right? So, even though you were not in jail longer than 5 days, but it was those 18 months of not knowing, right, what was going to happen. Tell us how you felt when you got your freedom.
Do you hear me clearly?
It's a little bit of feedback.
Okay. All right. So to answer that question, it was probably the greatest moment of my life, outside of graduating from college and seeing the birth of my children. I had no idea how things were going to pan out. It was, like I said, it was 18 months of back and forth to court, back and forth to in and out of court, continuations. So when I went to court that day, I wasn't optimistic. I honestly thought that it was going to be another continuance, right? Prior to, and this is how my faith works. So while I was going through all of that, I was sitting at home on administrative leave without pay. But I had interviewed in several school districts for administrative positions, for assistant principal positions. I was hired in 2 different cities. I was hired in Isle of Wight County as an assistant principal, and I was hired in South Bend, Indiana, as assistant principal. I was really trying to escape my pain. I was running, right? But as I took those positions with the anticipation of my court proceedings would be over with, well, I went to court and it was continued. So I had to call Isle of Wight County and say, hey, thanks for the position, but I can't take it. Because I didn't want to explain to them what I was dealing with. I had to do the same thing with South Bend, Indiana. I actually had a friend who's a principal in one of the schools in South Bend, Indiana, who stepped out on a limb to help me get that job. And for me not to take it, I felt bad, but he knew what I was going through. But I say that because I was still interviewing, filling out applications, and not knowing my fate. But I knew that I've done things the right way. I have always been, my moral compass have always been intact. So I stepped out on faith. Now, I interviewed for a position in Hampton City Schools. They offered me the position. When they offered me the position, they asked me to start the following week. I told the principal, I said, hey, I can't start right now. I have some obligations I have to tend to. I said, but I can start on August 15th of 2022. And that day was a Monday. I had court August 12th, that Friday. So when I went to court, everything turned out and worked out in my favor. I left out of the courtroom. I handed my children off to my father. I drove to Hampton City Schools, signed my contract. Later that evening, I was out with friends, celebrating just getting through that part of my life. I was on a boat ride, actually, and my phone had rung from my realtor. Mind you, I didn't have a job. I wasn't getting paid, but I put an offer on a home. So my realtor called me the same day as I signed my contract, as all my charges were dropped, and said, hey, that offer we put on the home, the seller has accepted your offer. I had all three things happen in the same day. All my charges were dropped at 9 a.m. I signed my contract to be assistant principal by 12, and by 6 or 7 o'clock that evening, I had found a new home. So it was nothing but God. I didn't realize it while I was going through the midst of what I was going through, because I was angry, and I always thought, why me? Why am I dealing with this? Where did I go wrong? Why am I going through this? But in the midst of going through all of that, my faith was tested. And I didn't even realize that I was doing things to prepare myself to receive my blessing. I just was saying, and with the help of a support system, I didn't do it all by myself. I had a great support system in place, family and friends who encouraged me to continue living. Continue living. It's going to work out. Do right by your children, and you're going to be successful. And I did that. So that day is really, really a big, big date for me. And it's coming up on a year. I'll be celebrating August 12th as if it's my birthday, because that was the day where I really, really was able to take control of my life and have control again. Prior to that, the 18 months, it was probably the hardest 18 months of my life. Mute.
Thank you, Vincent. I never mute myself, but I'm like, I want to make sure the feedback. But, just sitting here and, watching, Prentice, when he talks about his wife and he talks about the baby, like the smile, that comes on his face. And I'm listening to you talk about, the charges being dropped. And you guys, there's a lot in this book, but for the sake of like just making sure that we don't share names and things like that. Today what we're focusing on with this conversation is grief through his eyes, but we want to focus on the resiliency, right? And we want to focus on we want to hear the story of where they have been, but we want to be able to celebrate where they are, right? And where they are going, and also just acknowledging that we have the right to grieve, that it is our right. But hearing you talk about the new house and the new job, and just seeing the way that your faces, light up when you talk about, what God has given you after all that you have been through, being a woman. And, I'll say this because we always know, and this is vice versa, but being a woman, we always know what we want from men. Right. But like Prentice said, we don't know, he doesn't know what a woman goes through. Right. And so just as a woman, we know what we want from men, but we don't know what you guys go through on a daily basis. And it's because of the expectations that we put on each other and that society has put on each other. But I'm so thankful that you guys have been able to be resilient. Right. And in being resilient, that you have acknowledged like what God has done in your lives, and acknowledging that you were not able to do it by yourself. And then really just being able to, as you guys are talking, you're always talking about that support system that you have. And I love that, because one of the questions I asked you guys while we were preparing was, do you talk to other men? Right. And you guys jumped right in there and was like, absolutely. Yes, we do. We have people that we talk to that we're able to be honest with and transparent with, and that they're able to pour into you guys and to share. And I am like over the moon about it, because there's so many men in my life that I know that they only share the good parts. Right. They only share the good parts of what's happening, and they don't want anybody to see, what society sees as a weakness. Right. But same thing for women. The weakness is not being able to say where we need to do better at. Right. And what we need to change. So Deborah says, I'm in tears listening to this priceless interview. I can't even talk because I had to promise myself today that I wouldn't cry. But it's emotional because men being in this space and just being transparent, like it's a big thing, right? When I lost my husband, it was like, okay, everybody, we have to go to counseling. But Prentice said, knowing that it's the right thing to do, but it doesn't mean it's the right time, right? Because we have to be ready for things. And, I'm telling my son all the time, you have to do this and you should do this. I introduced him to counseling, but I didn't make him do it. And so, Prentice, you saying what you said, it like solidified the fact that I'm doing the right thing by introducing it, but not making him, because it has to be a right time. People have to be ready.
Even with that, also, that I want to hit on quick, because like you say, even with the time and the season, because there was times, like I said, when my wife wasn't, she couldn't be there for me like I wanted her to be, like, and I couldn't, we would piggy off each other. I couldn't go to my dad, or my mom was two people I know that's always been like the strongest, my older sister and stuff. So it's like, like I had like God, even though there was times I didn't want to, I didn't feel like praying. I wasn't angry at God. I just, you're always told don't question God, but I had questions for God, and it was kind of like, okay, even though I don't have, and it's just general in people, and what it showed me through this season is, even though you don't have words, even though you don't have the words for God, God always has a word for you.
Say so, Prentice.
I'm telling you, man, because there's times where I didn't know what to pray. I didn't know what to talk about. I didn't, it's a new me now. It's a new level of you and everything that you're discovering. So I'm like, Lord, what do I say? Like, I'm broken. Like, what is, but at the end of the day, through that, I gotten more and more to realize that God wants us to be honest with him, because, forget the performance, forget the hats that you wear, forget all the things and the accolades and all that. Like my dad always been punching to me and my dad and my mom is, it's a heart thing. So
it's definitely a heart thing.
At times it's hard to pour your heart when your heart is, when it's heavy. So even for you to pick up your own heart. So and I just wanted to hit on that, because that's when I couldn't go to my wife, I definitely had to. God was my, that was my go-to. That was my source.
And that's the thing, because, and Deborah said it too, but it's the truth. Like, people will say, don't question God. But I was like, you know what? That's my daddy. Right. And I'm going to have any type of conversation that I need to have with him. And I'm going to ask him whatever I need to ask, because that is the person. He's the only person that's going to be able to give you answers. He's the only person that's going to be able to comfort you and, to guide you. And Deborah had said something earlier, and I may not be able to find it, but like, there's life after death. She said something like that. And that's the truth, because when I was in my grief, and I'm still in it, and that's the thing. I'm like, if I want to fall out and I want to cry, I could do that, right? I'm going to be resilient. Then I'm going to get myself up, I'm going to wash my face, and I'm going to go and I'm going to do what I need to do. But I'm going to grieve however long I need to and however I need to do it. And I'm going to talk to him and ask him whatever. But like, even through the trauma, like, Vincent said, he found that purpose through his trauma, because we learned that the person or the people that we felt like we could always go to, sometimes that person's not there, right? Like, when things happen, I would always go to my husband, but he wasn't there anymore. He was the person I was grieving. So then where do you go? And God still, he says to you, like, you have to spend more time with me, because I'm the first person that you should have been coming to first anyway. Right. And then you're right. You're not the same person when you lose something or you lose somebody. And so I'm not the same person I was a few years ago. You guys aren't the same people when, as you were before, but we are a better version of ourselves. Right. And that those experiences have helped us to grow, with our relationship with other people, with our relationship with God, and with our relationships with ourselves. We have different expectations. We have different things that we're going to do. And so now we move a little differently. So it's 7:05, and this is supposed to be an hour show.
Let me say something before you cut. I'm not
going to cut you off. We're not going.
Let me say something. Okay. So you don't know this.
Let it rain on me.
I was going. You don't know. Like you don't know this. You know, our children, our sons played basketball together, right?
Yes.
So Al knew what I was going through. He knew. Again, he was a childhood friend of mine, a little older than I am. He was, he mentored me in so many ways. He also plucked me across my head and beat me up growing up, but it was all love, right? He knew what I was going through. And one of the things, and when I say, a support system, support pours in from all different avenues. It don't always have to be father, mom, wives, cousins. It's people who just know your situation and know what type of individual you are. And one of the things he said to me, we were standing on the wall at our son's basketball game. You were sitting in the bleachers. Of course, it was crowded, so it wasn't nowhere for he and I to sit. So we were standing talking. And Al said to me, he said, "You're going to get through it. I know you're going to get through it. I believe you're going to get through it. But this is what you need to do. So when you get through it, you're able to receive your blessings. Make sure you keep your credit straight." And I say that, and I say that because the day I got all my charges dropped, I accepted my offer on a home was accepted, and that was his nugget and his jewel he dropped on me that I took in. Where I wasn't working. I hadn't worked in 18 months, so I was living off of my savings account. So I could have easily not paid a bill here and not paid a bill there. But one of the things was I was uncomfortable. I'm so thankful for my father. He allowed me to come in his house with my children. He changed his living situation for us for 18 months and didn't ask for nothing from me. But I was uncomfortable being there. Right? I hadn't lived in my parents' house since I was 17 when I went off to college. I was uncomfortable being there. So I never looked at him or providing my family, myself and my two children a place to stay as our home. I wanted to get out of there. And when I heard Al tell me, make sure you pay every bill and pay it on time. And that was his jewel he dropped for me. And I'm thankful for it because I could have easily just said, man, I ain't paying. I ain't got no money. I'm living off my savings. And I was able to, get through it. And he was definitely access to that. And I just want to thank you. Thank you.
Along I want to hit on with Vincent when it come down to support that I like that he said, especially about caring. Because one thing that stuck me that my dad is that once he said it stuck me, but with support, people don't care how much you know until they know that you care. And it had rung in my head once Vincent had said what he said about that support and everything.
I mean, I'm telling you because I didn't know Vincent. My husband knew Vincent, but he knew everybody right in Norfolk. So I was just like, yeah, he just knows somebody. But even the people that you expect to be there for you, Vincent was like, hey, how you doing? How's the boy? How things going? And so support can come because even though you can know people forever, but when things happen and trauma happens, sometimes you don't see them. Right? But you see who you need, not always who you expect. Right? And so I didn't really know Vincent, but the fact that he would check on us just to make sure we were okay. And it's because of that relationship. And so God always puts the people that we need in the places we need them to be, right? Because my husband would tell me stories, yeah, I know Vincent since he was a kid, and I would do this and we would do that, and I'd be like, whatever, because let him tell, he done raised everybody in Norfolk, right? But like, you don't know where those connections and what you will need later. And so I want to publicly say, even though I didn't really know you like that, I thank you for checking on us, just because our kids play basketball and because you had a relationship with him. It feels good for people that you don't know personally to be invested in you and to genuinely want to make sure that your family, is okay. you know. um so listen, I want to respect everybody's time. So to the folks who are watching, thank you so much. We went a little over, but again, it's important to give a space that our men can share their heart, and they can be transparent, and they can bless somebody else. I just want to go up because I see a few, guys on here. That was actually some of my childhood friends, and I know Prentice said it's crazy, Prentice and Prentice, but Prentice said, "Much respect for you fellas. Keep pushing your own greatness." And that's the thing. We have to know that it's okay for men to cry. It's okay for men to share because men talk too, right? And if we respect each other, we give that space, and we give that opportunity, we can learn so much from each other. And it's things that we don't have to go through, that we can learn from somebody else's mistake or somebody else's situation. Yes, it's some things that we have to do, right, in order to learn, but it's some things we don't have to go through. And if we have to go through it, we have to know that we don't have to do it by ourselves. Prentice, I think your dad is on, and he has been dropping some nice comments over here. I think everything's been going like so fast, but I just want you to know that he's here. And one of the things he did say when you guys were talking was men helping men. Um, broken hearts, and that's a powerful statement in itself, because we've all experienced something and we have broken hearts. And when you guys are sharing and talking like that, it's really blessing me, and I'm definitely going to make sure that my son and some of his friends are able to see this show tonight, because I want them to know how important it is for men to be able to talk and to share and to support. So I want to give you guys, I know you guys have businesses. There's other things that you are doing other than being authors, because you guys are authors now, and that's exciting. But how can people in the community support you guys, and where can we find you?
I'm on Facebook, VJ the Coach's Coach. Also, my Instagram, Big Deal VJ. Um, I'm very active in the community, man. I'm just if there's a football game or basketball game of youth, I'm probably there. So you can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. If there's anybody want to speak with me, and if I can drop any more jewels on anyone to help them through their pain, help them through their trauma, then that's what I'm here to do.
And what about is that a clothing line? Oh,
Yes, it's Hope. I'm still working on a web page for that, so I haven't really, really promoted that much. But yes, I have my own clothing line. Actually, I have on a hoodie right now. Hope. I don't know if you can see it.
you
Hope.
can
Hope
see it.
pain ends with the broken heart with a band-aid over the heart. Um, I originally started it just for my own sake. It was nothing I was doing to try to make a profit off of. But as I was wearing my hoodies and my t-shirts, I had a couple people come to me and say, "Hey, man, how do we go about purchasing it?" So I'm working on a web page now, so I can be selling merchandise. I'll get back with you guys in regards to that once it's complete.
Okay. And Prentice.
Uh, of course, my name is Prentice Leonard, and that's PRENTICE Leonard LEONARD. That's how you can find me on Facebook. Also, my business is Lucky Seasons Landscaping. That's my second business. I have a job first, so I don't want nobody to think I just cut yards all day every day, because it's hot out here. Um, so that's one of the ways you can reach me. I also just made an Instagram at underscore P Leonard. And that's at underscore P Leonard. And I'm just like Vincent. I definitely want to shout out Vincent. Um, and definitely my sister in Christ, my dad, my sister, Coach Deborah, um, the whole Just Inspirations Live, and just the people who've been there and she had hit it when she said, you're going through those rough times when people say they're gonna be there. Call me whenever you need anything. As time go on, you left in the smoke alone. So for those who did come along, like even Coach Deborah said, be the strangers that come about. Thank you for those people that really been there, not just for me, but for us as well. And it's definitely our other brothers and co-authors on Volume 1 and 2 that's been definitely mentors and big brothers and just all around men that we can, hold hands and talk to and fellowship with. So that's been an honor too. So yep, Instagram, Facebook, and definitely, like my brother said, definitely go get this book. Take some time out. Grief is not all bad. So this is a very uplifting book. It's not a sad book. For a long time, even Volume 1, I was scared to read my dad's chapter. It took me almost a whole year to read his chapter. And it was one of the most uplifting chapters to actually help me out. And I just thank him for being strong to me. And at the end of the day, just remembering that, you got other people that's going through so much worse. And but me continuing to give to others, serve others, and just love others has definitely been a big help of my healing process. And definitely my in-laws, my mother and father-in-law. We got a baby girl now, so I'm the new daddy on the block. So and just my wonderful wife, man, and church with them and just being to and fro with them. So that's definitely a blessing. So I definitely thank everyone. But that's some ways that you can reach me. Feel free to reach out, encouragement, prayer, to talk, you name it. Like, this is like Pastor said, this is good ground. This is a good.
This book is good ground.
every ear that's willing to listen ain't a good one. So definitely, and most of all, two last names. Shout out to Prentice for having a close name to my name. That's a powerful name. And then definitely Vincent, you got to give me one in the pudding.
I got you, brother. I got you.
So you guys, if you are in the Hampton Roads area, I know that Prentice and Vincent, they both have books on hand. So I'm sure you can get with them. I dropped some of their information in the comments, and then if you don't, then just get with me. I'll help you connect with them, so I know that you can cash at them, to get a book. Also, you can go on Amazon, and it's not just Volume 2, but there's also a Volume 1 as well. I don't know, Miss Deborah on here, we could have a Volume 3. We could have some women grief through her eyes. I don't know what we may have going on, Miss Deborah, but I think you have hit the jackpot. And again, Deborah Fry is on here. She is the visionary behind Grief Through His Eyes, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And so we're thankful that she was obedient, because again, we need to hear our men's voice. So again, you guys, I want to thank you so much for coming on. It has been a blessing to me. I've been doing this for a really long time. My background is in communication and I love it, but this is one of the only shows that I think I was so nervous about. I called some of my girlfriends and said, I need a pep talk because I'm nervous about this show, but I'm just so thankful because God laid this on my heart just a little while ago. Actually, I've been trying to get like my husband and some of his friends to come on. They never came, but I believe that it happened when it was supposed to happen, because I'm in a different space now to be able to do this and to be able to receive, really what you guys are saying. And, to be able, there's a connection, that we have with stories, and we have to understand that we have more connections to people than we have differences. So I appreciate you guys coming on. Continue to, be who you are, acknowledge God, and to just keep going, because we're not in that trauma anymore, right? We've been able to move through it. So I want to thank you guys so much for coming on.
I want to also mention
I'm about to make Prentice my co-host. We about to do this together, because
you can talk, can't it?
I'm just saying, even with the people that want to order books, if you're out of state, we mail them. So
yeah, we mail them.
Any of the co-authors, J Inspirations, get information from her or either Coach Deborah. We mail them because we got people that want to mail. They're not in Virginia, so we mail them Venmo, payment, PayPal, Cash App, you name it. So just to throw that
And
out.
so if you are watching, and if you share the live and you tag Jspirations Live, I will purchase at least 2 more books and giving them away. Okay. So listen, tag me, tag Jspirations Live. And so the first 2 people that I see share the live and tag, I will get the books from Prentice and Vincent, and then we'll get them mailed out to you. And Miss Fry says, thank you so much for this amazing show. You are wonderful. Thank you so much. And let's do another set of co-authors. Hey, let's do it.
Let's do it.
We'll get together and let's schedule it. Let's do it. This is our new series, Men Talk 2. And this was our second conversation. The first conversation was a group of my childhood friends that we grew up with. And they talked about a little bit of everything and they started us off. And so let's do it. Let's schedule a conversation number 3, a conversation number 4. Let's make sure that we give our men the opportunity to have a safe place to share. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. If this is your first time watching Jspirations Live, please be sure to like and to follow the page. We are live every Friday night at 8:00 p.m. for Jspirations Live Fill Up Friday. It's a time where we come together on Friday to talk about what we filled up on for the week and to encourage each other and to motivate each other. I'm not a preacher, but God always gives me a word for myself and the opportunity to share with others. We're also going to be celebrating our 5-year celebration of Jspirations Live, our podcast. And we've had a radio show for about a year that's been on hiatus, but we'll be back soon. But we're going to be celebrating Jspirations Live. It's a place where we talk with real people about real things that matter and make sure that we are bringing some positivity to the airways. We're also going to start to have some more in-person events, but Saturday, October the 21st at 6:00 p.m. here in Norfolk, Virginia, we will be celebrating 5 years. Jspirations Live presents Beauty, Boldness, and Butterflies. Tickets are available on Eventbrite, and it is a semi-formal event. So get your tickets. And we also will have anniversary t-shirts on sale that will be delivered the night of the show. Deborah wanted to say that herself and 2 other bestsellers will be on CBN next week to discuss the book and the importance of men at the table. So, Deborah, if you send me that information, I will share it on my page. You guys are doing a wonderful job. We want to make sure that all the authors get the opportunity to share their stories. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Meet us next time on Friday night for Fill Up Friday Live, and we'll be just bringing you more and more and more. These are real people, real talk, people in our community that we can touch, that we can connect to, that's making a difference in other people's lives and in the community. So enjoy the rest of your night, and as always, be J-spired.
Good night.